Hello and welcome to this Dynamicweb webinar. My name is Mikkel and today I'm going to talk about items. And what I will be doing today is that I will give a rerun of a slightly adapted presentation from what I gave at our recent Dynamicweb Tech Conference. And the title of the presentation is Items Are a Nerd's Best Friend. But as you will hopefully see during this presentation is that items are actually everybody's best friend. And let's get started with the presentation itself. Yeah, this is a selfie of myself, of course, and my name is Mikkel Ricci, and I'm a developer evangelist at Dynamicweb. And on the agenda today, we have these three items. What are items? And then I will show a live demo of how to use items in a more or less realistic scenario on a live website. And then we will end off this session with some questions from you, hopefully. So what are these items? And items have been in Dynamicweb for more than a year now. And a lot of you have started using them, and we have been working a lot of making it easier to use items, and we are continuously adding new functionality to make it easier to do the stuff that you need to do. And on Tuesday we will release Dynamicweb 8.4.1, where we have even more improvements to the way you can use items in your daily work with Dynamicweb. And I'd just like to talk a bit about why items are everybody's best friend. On this slide, I've made an example of stuff that I've encountered more than once when working with websites, where basically the CMS provides the editor, the guy putting content into CMS, with a rich text editor like we see on this image. And then, of course, he can put text into that rich text editor and format the text with colors and markup headers and stuff like that. But many times we need some more when we want to present that stuff in the front end. So I've heard more than once a designer or a website implementer tell the text or content editor that he should remember to add a button in this rich text, and then he should add a class attribute to that button, and the class attribute should be read-only. And only people that are skilled in HTML and CSS will know what that actually means. A normal person will not know what we mean when we say this, and actually he should not be concerned with it. With items, we can help this editor and we don't have to tell him to do stuff like this. Because when we have an item, we can design our content, and the content in this case is an item or an item type, where we have exactly the fields that we need. So I hope you agree that on this page, it's obvious what the editor has to do. He has to put the title of this piece of content into the title field. He can add a subtitle. The text for the item should be put into the text field. And then he has the possibility of specifying an URL down here at the bottom where we can read more about this item. So this item could be used on the front page of a website, for instance, to give a quick overview of content that's can be found somewhere else on the website. So from the editor's point of view, it's a lot easier to edit content when he has exactly the fields he needs, and he doesn't have to understand and very technical descriptions on how he should act when editing the content, that he should add attributes and class names and stuff like that to the content. And from a front-end implementer's point of view, items are also a great help, because before items, basically what we could do as a front-end implementer when we were publishing content based on Dynamicweb paragraphs, we could only get the text from the paragraph. Of course, we get images and stuff like that, but assuming we use the rich text editor, we could get the value, and I'm using Razor in this example, but basically in the front end, we show whatever text the editor has put into the rich text field. And then we can hope, and only hope, that he has done his job as we told him to do, that is, that he added this button or link we asked him to add, and that he has added the correct CSS class and stuff like that. But we cannot control how we will the content and how it's actually rendered. Using items, we get much more fine-grained control over the content, because as you saw before, the editor has a title property on the content. There's a text property, there's a read more URL property, and I should say read more text down here. But basically, as a front-end developer, when we're using items, we get much more control over the content, because now we can make sure that the title of the item is actually wrapped in a div class, a div with a class panel header in this case, and we can render the text, and then we can ourselves add the A element we need for the link, and we can make sure we as front-end implementers that know how to use HTML and CSS and stuff like that, we can add the classes that are needed, in this case this class attribute, and we can add the href attribute and stuff like that. So even though this template it's more text, there's more text in the template than on this template, but we get much better control over how the content is actually rendered in the front end. So basically what items boil down to is that we get a separation of concerns. So the content designer designs content, and in a few minutes I'll show you what I'll play the role of a content designer. But basically a content designer is the guy that defines what properties a piece of content has. And he also defines how content items can be put together. For instance, which kinds of items can be children of other items. And then the second bullet here is the content editor. He focuses only on editing content. So he puts the value of the title into the title field, and he puts the text into the text field, and so forth. But he doesn't concern himself with how the content is actually rendered in the front end, or how it should look, because it should not be his concern what the content looks like, but his concern should be to write good content and just focus on that. Finally, the content implementer implements content, and the content implementer, that's a front-end developer that uses the properties of the content to render it and precisely control the rendering in the front end. And because we're using properties on items, we can make the item look one way on a desktop website, and if we have a mobile website as well, we can make the content look completely differently, because we have full control over how we render the item-based content in the front end. So that was a bit of the theoretical views behind using items and why we need them, and at least why I think that we need them. And now I will show you a live demo of using items. And I will not go into great details on how to use items, but I will just give you a short overview of how they can be used, and then I will urge yourself to play around with them and see how you can benefit from them. So I'll just jump to I have a basic, very plain website here. It's a demo site I built for the tech conference that we had in the beginning of March. And everything I will show you today, the item type definitions and stuff like that, are available on GitHub, so you can get it yourself and play around with it. But basically what I have here is a completely empty website. So we have a front page that's hidden in the menu, and that's basically it. And what I would like to do now is that I will create a list of people, or a list of people where I can. So my content item is a person, and a person has a name and a gender. And then I will publish a list of people, a list of persons. If we should stress that it's actually a list of person. in the front end, and I will show you how you can edit a person in the front end, because you can that using items. And then I will always also show you how you can use the item creator. That's currently a beta module, but it's in Dynamicweb, and it's used to create items in the front end. So the first thing I will do is that I will go into the management center, and I will go to the entry called item types. And you can see here I have a lot of items already in the system, and those are the examples from the tech conference. But what I will do first is that I will go into the category called people, and you can categorize your item types so you can get an overview and group them. So you can see here I have something that's related to people, and I already have one item called people. And the idea behind the people item type is that it's just a container for person item types. So I will create a new item type by clicking new item type up here at the top. And then I see the item type settings. And an item type needs a name, and this is a display name that's used in the backend when we create new items of this type. So I will just call this person. And then we need a system name, and the system name is used internally. So Dynamicweb just suggests a reasonable system name, and in this case, it's the same as the item name. Then I can add a description, and this is used to help the editor to find out what he has to do. I'll just put something, an item describing, if I cannot spell, sorry about that, describing a person. And then I have to decide on how and where I can use this item type. Items can be used for different things in Dynamicweb. They can be used as website and page properties, so that they can basically be used as a way to extend websites and pages with additional properties that may be used in the front end, for instance, to add extra metadata to a page, or to control how the template behaves and stuff like that. And an item can be enabled for use as a page, and that's what I will do today. We can also add item-based paragraphs. So instead of using the built-in paragraphs in Dynamicweb, we can create our own paragraphs and get much more control on the fields that are on a paragraph to help our editors edit content. And finally, an item type can be used as part of another item. For instance, if you want to have an image carousel on your website, you can create an item type called carousel, and then you can create an item type called carousel item or carousel image, depending on how you name your things. And then you can specify that the carousel item can contain a list of carousel items. And an item can actually play more than one role, but so it could be used both as a page and as a paragraph. But for now, we'll just make it available as a page. Then we can pick an icon for our item type. And let's see if I can find one that I probably can. Yeah, no, that was not a user. I just pick this nice star, but of course I should find an icon that shows what kind of content this item is. Then I can specify if this item should generate customized URLs, and that's not really interesting today, so I'll just skip that for now. And then finally I can add a category, and this category is just something that's used in the backend to categorize items and to get this nice overview of items over here. Rather than having one long list of item types, you can group them into categories. So I add my person item type to the people category. I press OK, and now I have set up my new item type. Then I need to add some fields, and that's the properties on my item type. So I click the new field button, and then I have to add the property. And a person for this demonstration has a name, of course. And again, Dynamicweb suggests a reasonable system name. So it's the full name of the person. And then I have to specify what kind of type, what data type this is. And for now, it's just a text, but it could also be a checkbox. So that could be a checkbox indicating whether this person is married or not married. If he's some Boolean property, of course. This new HTML input is new in Dynamicweb 8.4.0, and I'll use that because it help you with a lot of stuff. But basically, it's an HTML of type text. It's basically the same as using this one, but I prefer this HTML5 one. And then there's a lot of settings. I can specify default value. That doesn't really make sense. And then I can say that the name is required, so I cannot create a person without specifying the name. And of course, I can specify an error message if the name field is empty, like this. Then I'll just create another field, call it gender, and for this I will like to use a drop down list, and then I press this icon to the right here, and then I add the new option set. There's something wrong with the layout here. So I'll say he can be a male, and again the label, that's the display value for use in the backend, but the actual value stored in the database should be male and female, like this. And now I save my item type, so now I've created the item type. One thing that's missing though is I have to define where I can use this item, because now I have just defined that I have an item type called person that has a name property that's a text, and it has a gender property that's a drop down where we can pick either male or female. So I go into restrictions, and then I can define where I want to be able to use this item type. First, I have to decide on which websites it should be available. And I can pick all, then it will be available, of course, in all websites on the entire solution, or I can say that I just want it to be available on the webinar website. That's the one I'm running on. So I'll just put that one in, but in many cases it would probably make sense to just select all. Then I have to decide where in the page tree I can put this item, and that's because it's an item-based page I'm creating now. So I can say that I want to allow them in the root of the website, but I don't really want to allow that, because I don't want persons to just float around in the page tree. I want to place them in under the people item type I mentioned earlier. And I don't want to add persons under regular pages. So I'll just leave these blank. And then I can specify what kind of children this item type can have. And of course, a person can have children in real life, but content-wise, today, it doesn't make sense for a person to have children, so I will just leave all of those blank. Just press OK, and then save and close. So now I have my person item type in place. As I mentioned, I have this people item type that's to act as a container for a list of person, and it has a title and description. And I have to edit the restrictions on this item type to allow it to have children of type person. And you can see this item type is allowed in all websites. It's allowed in the root of a website. And then I have to say down here that it allows person as a child. So this is the role of the content designer to design the content and add the right attributes to the item types, and then also make sure to get the right setup to control the structure of the items. And the example here is that we have a people item type that allows person as children. And that's the only place that a person is allowed to be created in the page tree. So now we have the item types in place, and I'll go back to the content. Then I will add a new page. And now here, this is a demo site from the tech conference, so there's a lot of example items. But I'll just add a page of type people. I'll call it people. Press OK. And now I have a new page called people, and I have to my item type of type people. You can see that down here at the bottom, what item type it is. And now I have to add this title again. And that's really annoying because in many cases, probably in most cases, I want this page title people to be the title of the item. And in Dynamicweb 8.4.1 that we will release on Tuesday, it will actually be possible to specify on an item type which field should be used as the page title in the page tree. But that's not until Tuesday in 8.4.1. So just have people and the list of person. And you can see this is an item-based page, so it has a lot of the properties shared with a page. It has the stuff about it, when it should be published, when it should be unpublished, and it has permissions, it has layout settings and stuff like that. So basically it's a Dynamicweb page, but it's an item-based page where I have very fine-grained control over the properties of the page. And now if I go to the front end and refresh, then I have my new page in the menu because it's just a page. And now I should be able to add a new subpage to the people page. And here you can see the only item that's allowed as a child is a person. And even a regular Dynamicweb page is not allowed. So I can only create a person under this page. I'll just add myself. And again, I have to add my name as the page name, and then again as the actual item name property. So we'll fix that. And then I'm male, I think. I save it. So that is, and again, this item-based page is a page, so it has all the properties of a page. So if I go to my front end, I now have the people, and then in my template here, I show the sub pages of this first top level page down here. So now I have my person item type in the front end, and of course I can add another one. Maybe I should take a female just to show you that it actually makes sense. So now we have these two. And you can notice up here that it's regular Dynamicweb pages basically. They have a specific URL, and the customized URL settings actually also work. It uses the title of the page. So far, so good. A problem here is that this front-end template doesn't show the properties of this item type. But of course we can fix that because it's a page, so it has a template. And I could go in here in the layout on the page and select the template for this page. But I don't want to do that because then if we were to do it like that, then every time the editor adds a new person, he would have to go into the layout settings on the page and pick a new template. Instead, I will edit my website, and then I will go to the layout settings on the website, and then we have an entry here called item page layouts. I click that, and then I see all the items that are available on my website. And you can see here for the people, the pre-cooked item type I've been using today, I already have specified that it should use a template called people.cshtml. It's a razor template. And my new one, person, here doesn't have any default templates, so it will just use the one that the website uses, but that template doesn't know how to handle this item type. So I will just go down here and pick the template, and I've made that in advance. So now I use the person CSHTML as the default template for a person item type. Press OK, I save, go back to the front end, and I reload the page, and it's loading. And then you can see now that it says Mikkel over here, and it says Lotte. So basically, this is my template now. That's whenever I create a new of these, you get a new page, and it shows the stuff. And I'll just quickly show you how this template looks. So I have my design here, TechConf 2014, and I have the person layout. It's a page template, so it's just in the design folder. And it looks like this. It uses a master page, and it's a razor template, and I'm showing the name. And of course, I can get the value of the item.gender as well and display that. Just add a h1 element around the name. Like this. I save and close. Refresh. So now you can see that James is a male, Lotte is a female, and Mikkel is a male. So that's the way we recommend that you use items. You create your item types, and then you add a template for your items and edit your website settings to use that template for all instances of this item. And you can do the same with item-based paragraphs, where you can create a new paragraph template and connect that to the item type in the layout settings on your website using the item paragraph layout. So that's one way of using. Well, that's the way to use items. Basically, you can add them as pages, and you can show them in your menu. But many times you don't want to do it like that. So you don't want to have this stuff in the menu like this. So of course you can. These item-based pages are just pages, so you can hide them in the menu. Now they're not in the menu, but they're still there. One thing you can do then is to use the item publisher to publish your person. So I go into my people page that allows paragraphs. That's because the template for this item type has a content placeholder, so I can add paragraphs. I add a new paragraph. And here you'll notice that I use a regular Dynamicweb paragraph, and that's because currently you cannot attach a module to an item-based paragraph, but you can do that on Tuesday in 8.4.1. But for now, I have to use a regular template. So I add the item publisher. Then I have to tell this item publisher what kind of items it should publish. And I, of course, wanted to publish person. And I wanted to select items from under the current page. That's my people page, so I'll leave that. And then I have to specify what fields I want to publish, and I just wanted to publish both my fields. And then there's a lot of template settings down here, but I'll just leave them as they are for now. Save and close, and then I'll go back to my people page and see what happens. So now we actually have the item publisher publishing our pages, our person pages, that's sub-pages of this page, and I can click view, and then I get, this is the the item publisher showing the details of this specific item. And you can see up in the URL actually that it's person, an item type called person with ID 147 that's actually being shown right now. And if I click on the item itself, the current item publisher template I'm using just links to the actual page that's this item. So that's a very nice way to use just the item publisher. Another thing that the item publisher can do is that it can actually let you edit your items. So if we go into the module settings and allow editing of items, then I can edit this. I put in my full name and save the changes. And then I've been a bit lazy in my template. Actually, the cancel or the save should go back to this list. But see, now using the front end, I can edit content. But I can only edit existing content. I cannot add new content. But we have a solution for that as well. And that's the item creator. So I'll just create it up on this page, on the paragraphs. I add a new paragraph, call it add person. I attach a module, that's the item creator. And this item creator is a way to create items in the front end. And we were discussing whether we should make the ability to create new items in the front end a part of the item publisher. But due to the amount of configuration that's needed on both the item publisher and the item creator, we decided to make two separate modules, but they could be put into one. But basically what I have to do in the module settings on the item creator is I have to specify a target page for my items that I'm going to create. And the default is the current page, and that's what I want for now. But of course I can pick another page and use that, so I can have my item creator in one page and publish items. Create items in a completely different page. Then I have to decide on what I want to create. If I want to create new item-based pages or item-based paragraph, I want to create pages. And the item type I want to create is, I just have to save this and go back in. In the module settings, I create a page, and now there's something wrong. That wasn't a part of my plan. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. Okay, there's something wrong here in my setup. But now I say that I want to create them on the people page, and then I can create a person. And here I have to specify what I want to use as the title of the newly created page, and I will use the name of the person. And these settings will be removed in 8.4.1 because, as I mentioned, this is actually should be a property of the item type, and it will be that on Tuesday. Then I have to decide if how the published state of the new item should be, and I want it to be hidden, or I could publish it. But this is basically the same stuff that you have up in the page settings. And then I can specify if I want the new items to become as behind all the other items on the sub pages on that page, or as first. And I can add a confirm page, so I can redirect the user to a thank you page or something after adding a new item. And there's also some save events, so you can send a receipt to if you use this, for instance, to sign up for a webinar, stuff like that. You can add an item-based, an item creator on your website, and then when a user signs up for a webinar, you can send a receipt to him, and you can send his actually item he's created to an administrator that will take care of counting how many attendees will come to this webinar. So, and of course, there's a template for creating the items as well. But now I will see if this works. So now we have, this is a new session. It's my template that's not really good. It should not show this, of course. Then I'll just put in a name, Peter. He's a male. I save the changes. And then we see it has created, and I have a caching issue in my browser, but you see here it has created a new item-based page that behaves just like anything else, all other item-based. And if I refresh back here, it's in there. The reason for Peter appearing at the top of this list is due to the sorting settings on the item publisher. So great. So now we see that I've given you a short introduction to how to use items, and more importantly, why to use items. And I hope you understand why I want you to use items for your content. And you can use item-based pages and item-based paragraphs, and you can extend pages on websites with properties of items. And you can, of course, show your items as regular pages in Dynamicweb or regular paragraphs, or you can use the item publisher to publish all of your items or some of your items and sort your items. And you can use the item creator to add new items from the front end. For instance, to replace the forms module, you can now create a contact form or stuff like that using the item creator. And we are actually doing that on our new website that we will release in a couple of days. So that's it for the demo. And if you want to, you can go to this website and play around with it. So just to sum up, items make it easy to structure content. Items are easy to edit for the content editor, and items are easy to implement in the front end. And our plan is that items will kill most Dynamicweb modules. So we cannot just kill the modules. We have to make sure that items can do the same as the modules can. But as you've seen today, we can already do a lot of fancy stuff using the item publisher and item creator. So we can replace simple uses of the forms module, and we can also build the news module using items. So any questions? Yes, and I can see there's already a number of questions. I'll just there's a question here if we can import and export item types, and yes, you can do that. Basically, item types are stored as XML files in the file system. So if you take a look in the file system items, there you have some XML files. They're called item type underscore and then the item type name. So we have the new one, person, that I've just created. You take a look at that. It looks like this. So this is an XML file. And you can take this XML file and put it into another Dynamicweb solution in the files system items folder. And then when you have done that, you go to Management Center, item types, and click the refresh button. And then Dynamicweb will read in this item type and do whatever it has to do to make sure that you can use this item type. And then there's another question, can item types inherit fields from a master item type? And currently, they cannot inherit from a master item type, but we're working on making it possible to inherit items, for instance, so that we can have person as a generic item type, and then we can create a student and a teacher, for instance, that extends this person. So the person contains the name and gender, for instance, and the teacher. He has the same properties as a person, but he also has a list of courses that he can teach and stuff like that. But we have just started working on this and specifying it, and so it will be a couple of months. We plan to have it ready for 8.5 that will be released in January. But we're working on this, and of course, any input you have on what you need and want to this, we are more than happy to get from you. Then there's a question here about templates, embedding default templates in item XML file. That's something we were discussing on the tech conference, and we will not do that because basically the template of an item type, the template used to render an item type is not a property of the item type itself. The item type is only a definition of the item and the properties it has and what kind of other items it may or may not allow as children and stuff like that. So the template should be kept separate from the item types. But what we add to these items and templates in 8.4.1 is that if you have an item type called person, then you can put a page template in your design that's called person as well, and then the system will automatically use that template to render person items. So that goes for page-based items and paragraph-based items. Sorry, item-based paragraphs and item-based pages, that they will look for a template with the same name as the item type and then use that to render the item. There's a couple of more questions. You just have to understand what. There's a question here: if can you hide an item type template so that it does not show in the paragraph drop-down list? On your content placeholder in your layout template, you can control what paragraph templates can be selected. So that's way of limiting it, and you can also on Tuesday in 8.4.1 you can also limit what kind of item types you can create inside a content placeholder. So you can do that if I understand your question correctly. But we are discussing a lot whether you actually need this template selector on paragraphs and pages. And personally, I don't think that you need it because, as I see it, it should be a property of an item how it should be rendered. So I know that there's a real world out there, but I'd like to be able to control my rendering without having the editor to have to pick a template. But we will not remove that possibility, of course. But I think you should consider using some properties. For instance, if you want an item to be highlighted on the front page, I can just show you on this demo site I made. Down here, it says the Silkeborg region and stuff like that. These three pieces of content, they are items, and they all use the same template. And the reason for this one being blue as highlighted is because the content editor has checked a property that's called important on this item. So I think in many cases you will not need the editor to pick a template for your items because, for instance, if an item is important or should be highlighted or something like that, should be a property of the item itself. yeah, and then there's a follow up on this. Yeah, that the user can choose the wrong template, and and that's the point I'm trying to get across. Whenever the user has to do something, he will sometimes do it incorrectly, and you can control what templates can be selected in your content placeholder. So you can do most of this, I think, but we may have to work further on limiting stuff and doing stuff like this. And as I mentioned, any input you have on this, please let us know so we can put it into the system. So are there any more questions? Yeah, okay, there's a lot of suggestions coming. Yeah, we will take those into considerations, that we have to find a way to maybe be able to identify item. Basically, if I understand you correctly, David, that you suggest that we put item templates into a specific folder in the design and stuff like that. We will think about it and just let us know what your thoughts are on this. Okay, so I'll just show you my last slide. Of course, you can also always check this URL for upcoming webinars, and there's a lot of cool stuff coming up, and we are rerunning most of the presentations from the tech conference in the coming weeks. So so that's it for now. Thanks for your time, and see you soon on another webinar. Thanks. Bye bye.